and voila, there is live. So this is a bit of an experiment, and welcome here to the HEJ 150 Text and Audiences lecture. We're going experimental in the first lecture to see what it's like going into actual digital spaces for text and audiences. So here we are in Twitch, and of course this is also being recorded and accessible on the Milo site. So continuing on, what I want to do is just run through some key aspects of the unit and really introduce everyone to where this is going and some of the really interesting parts of how this can be set up. So I'll disappear and we'll go through some key ideas. The first one is how do audiences make meaning from media? It seems to be a very easy question to ask, but is deceivingly difficult. If we look at this image, so one of my favorite activities to do is to do a Google image search to check out what's an unusual image that I could use to figure things out. So this is just literally typing in cinema audience. And what do we see here? We see a lot of examples of the type of audiencing which many people would assume they'd see if you thought of what an audience is. That is the idea that they're sitting there and looking at what's occurring and a little passive, right? That kind of image that the audience is just a kind of gaze. They just gaze out at things. And that might be what you think audience is when it comes to your mind. You might also think of this. I mean, I love this phenomena of the React video. So here we have just a screen capture. Of course, you'll see in the center the Avengers Infinity War trailer. And this is a reaction mashup where what we see here are little images of people reacting to the Avengers trailer. All right, so if you do, I do encourage you, you must have seen these, but if you've not, do have a look at, just type in trailer mashup and see the type of kind of audience reactions, and particularly the emotions that are coming through here. And also the view numbers, right? Why are we interested in watching people be audiences here, right? And this is the point I'm driving at, and that we'll look at in this unit. Why are we so fascinated about what and who the audience is, even as its own form of entertainment, as we can see there? So how do audiences make meaning from media? That is, how do they explain media and make sense of it? There we saw some React videos, or a React video screenshot, which gives us an idea of how they're making meaning. They're reacting to it. There are certain points in the Avengers trailer where there might be a gasp of surprise. There's a kind of spoiler or a teaser going out. And then there's a bit of a competition which occurs. I'm sure many people know this on forums, where with the trailer there'll be this speculation of what the meaning is, what the direction is. So there's a real meaning making going on there from the audience. Now, John Fiske refers to this as audiencing. And I like this term because it really shifts away the idea of looking at audience as being about an action, right? You do audiencing. You're not just audience. So those React shots are full of action, right? Full of people emoting and thinking. And when people are trying to make sense of media content, they're really sometimes trying to make sense of who they are, where they belong in almost a moment of history, right? So those React videos to a trailer are this encapsulation of a moment in history as a big event movie occurs, and all the speculation as to what that means. And again, you can see this process, right? This process of people making sense of media, and through that, they're really making sense of themselves. If you ask the right people the right questions. So if we think about that idea of audiencing, we can see that it's been turned into its own television phenomena, right? So Google Box Australia is a really interesting example of this. Right here is just a screen capture of a Google search for what Google Box Australia is. You probably have seen it. If you haven't, as you can see from these images, it depicts people on lounges looking at television. And as the description says at the bottom, each week Google Box Australia takes viewers into 10 Australian lounge rooms to watch some of the country's most opinionated and avid television viewers laugh, cry, and shout freely at some of the best and worst programs on television. And that brings us back to this idea that what does it mean to be an audience? It can mean people making sense of media content, right? Valuing it, right? So Google Box will have people, as it says here, being opinionated, valuing it as good or bad, the reactions occurring there as indexing all these debates about gender and age and race, right? And also a moment of history, right? A real slice of time. If you look back at any of those episodes, 2015, it started here. Of course, this is a franchise, various other Google Box versions around the world. But each one of those, you can see the moment of time they're engaging with through the content, right? It's very reflective. Being an audience is really, in a way, negotiating where you belong to in a point of history, as well as making sense of who you are. Interestingly, the idea of who the audience is and how the audience makes meaning, more than the React video, has developed into professionals, talking about them as audiences for television or movies. So we have stunt masters react to stunt films, musicians and magicians react to magic in film. Here we have an example of US Marine breaks down military movies. And if you remember from first semester, I did kind of show that clip. Worth looking at again. I love the scene here, as you can tell from the image capture. Full Metal Jacket film, and the way he talks about it as being an audience member, and the type of reality of the Marine Corps that it conveyed, but then also the idea that it was almost a type of recruitment video, right? That he talks about the fact that many Marines he knew joined the Marines not for Full Metal Jacket, but through Full Metal Jacket really had an image of what the Marines were that influenced their decisions, right? So again, audience as action, audiencing, and wanting to actually get people to talk about who they are as an audience for a text. So in this case, it's interesting to watch this because who is this audience member? Well, he's an ex-Marine. That's interesting because, again, that question of making sense of media from that particular position of audience becomes entertaining, becomes information as well. So one of the things that's quite interesting here also is that space is full of controversy. So I don't know if people remember a few years back, there was the Fine brothers who have a quite elaborate kind of React video channel. Elders react, kids react. And there was a controversy around their attempts to trademark the React term, right, as part of their launch of their channel. And it led to this controversy around the ownership of the idea of the React. And the Fine brothers had to retreat back from that position because, again, this kind of moral argument that you can't claim ownership of audiencing, right? That this phenomena, this interest in the reaction phenomena isn't something that people wanted to see exclusively owned. Interestingly, though, I think there's a bigger question here about